Allow me to introduce you to ADAMA.
Atlanta is the Black Mecca. We know this already. We are home to people of African descent and the epicenter of arts and culture.
But where can you go to experience Black art and culture, illuminating the depth and breadth of the African diaspora?
Launched in March 2020 as a museum without walls, ADAMA quickly emerged as a space that is already engaged in communities around the world.
The best part about being a founding member of ADAMA
is knowing that I'm part of making history.
By contributing to ADAMA, you're joining a global community of dreamers and builders,
bringing forth a world-class museum
that highlights the Black global experience.
And it's all happening here.
Right here.
Right here.
Right here, right now.
Right here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Join us.
Give.
And get involved.
ADAMA.
All right. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you to everyone who is here joining us today out there in the interwebs and here in our audience. Give yourselves a hand. Welcome to ADAMA. Welcome to this Arts Salon series. Thank you for joining us. I am Kimberly Binns. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I do a lot of different things, including video design and projection work and theater work and drawing and painting. And today I am excited to be in conversation with Honey Pierre and Dawn Williams-Boyd. They are two wonderful artists who work in the medium of fiber and textiles. And I'll read their bios to you to introduce you to them. We have Honey Pierre. Cassandra Hickey, known as Honey Pierre, is an Atlanta-based fiber artist with 3 years of experience in this medium and a total of 6 years of experience in painting. She hails from Cleveland, Ohio, and made the transition to Atlanta, Georgia in 2018. Her journey has been marked by mentorship, mastery, and significant growth as a fiber artist. Cassandra has an impressive exhibition record, having participated in 30 group exhibits, held 2 successful solo exhibitions, and contributed installations to offices and public spaces. So welcome, Honey Pierre. We also have Dawn Williams-Boyd. Dawn's artwork reflects her interest in American history as it affects and is affected by its African-American citizens. After more than 30 years successfully painting in oils and acrylic paints, in 2002, this prolific artist began to paint with fabric instead of on fabric. Her large-scale cloth paintings are representative and packed with vibrant, often life-size figures. Strategically placed beads, sequins, cowrie shells, laces, silk ribbons, and occasionally acrylic paints are added to embellish the surface. Through cutting, patching, surface enhancement, and quilting, bits and pieces of fabric are transformed into modern visual storytelling. Her work is included in the permanent collections of the Birmingham Museum of Art, Columbus Museum, Everson Museum of Art, Equal Justice Initiative Legacy Museum, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Richardson Family Art Museum, Woolford College, Spartanburg, and numerous private collections. Welcome, Dawn Williams-Boyd.
Thank you very much.
Welcome our artists. Thank you. So today's conversation is very organic, so to speak. I personally have just a general interest in the work that artists do with fiber and textiles. I just find the creativity and the time and thought that's put into creating the art that you do and telling the stories with, such a very germane material and turning it into something that's really dynamic has always been fascinating to me. And I wanted to bring the two of you together for you to share your process and how you go about your work with our audience, and just maybe talk about the fiber art in the canon of the fine art world, if you will, and maybe we can get into a little bit of the history of that and all those good things. So I'll just start with beginnings. So Honey Pierre, can we start with you? And can you just kind of tell us a little bit about how, just first of all, do you call yourself a fiber artist, textile artist? What's the difference? Does it matter? You know, how do you define what you do?
As of recently, now that I'm taking on quilting and learning that thoroughly and just incorporating that with my punch needle, now textile artist, full on. But I still a fiber artist day in and day out. I work with a lot of yarns every single day. Got all types. Come to my studio. We got silk, acrylic, wool, don't matter. We got the whole thing going on, the whole workshop.
Now, when you first began your art journey, did you start here, or were you working in other mediums, or did you just find your way, or what was that like for you?
So I was originally painting and just doing public art. That's where my real interest was. I got to get into the community that way and just engaging and getting to know everybody here, just moving here from Cleveland, because in Cleveland, we do have an art community, and it's finally becoming a community, in a sense, like how it is here, with everybody coming together and showing up and actually putting in the effort and intention into actually exhibiting and wanting people to win and have acquisitions from the museums and, you know, just putting a spotlight on everybody. So coming from Cleveland, coming here, I was open to just learning. I was literally an open book. I was open to learning how to paint better, how to be a muralist. I had no interest in textile work at all when I first got, honestly, ever. But during the pandemic, we all got to sit down, for real. And during that time period, I don't know if it was like God talking to me or like, you know, whatever, but somehow I just started researching punch needle, and I taught myself through YouTube University, and just started getting better. And then I figured out like the stories I actually wanted to tell with punch needle, with using the figurative work, and the narratives like in my family and my friends and just our lifestyles day in and day out. And here I am now, being able to tell our stories full time, every exhibit I get to do.
Dawn, what about you?
My story is similar. I began my journey as a portraitist in oils, switched to acrylics because I couldn't stand the oils, the smell, the slowness, the inability to change quickly. So I did that for 20 years. I began working in fabric. Accidentally, I was asked to do a teacher's workshop on, I always forget this woman's name when it comes to time for me to say it, but anyway. I began Faith Ringgold.
Oh.
And
that's a name to remember.
I know, all right? So I did a teacher's workshop on Faith Ringgold, and I discovered that not only does she paint on canvas, but what she was doing at the time is lining her canvases in patched fabric. And the important thing for me about Ms. Ringgold's work was that instead of stretching the canvas over stretcher bars, she just rolls it, sticks it in a tube, and mails it where she wants to go. At the time, I was working in acrylics on either 3/4 inch plywood and corrugated cardboard, and so I was having a really hard time transporting my work from where I lived in Colorado at the time to wherever it was being shown. I had to make a case for it and box it up, and it was very expensive. And so I figured if I was working in fabric, then I can just roll it up in a tube or fold it, put it in a box, take it to the post office and mail it. And so I had been sewing since I was a little girl, and I found that the fabric store was as fascinating as the art supply store.
I can understand that.
Yeah. And so that's where I started. And to answer your first question, I prefer the term artist because I work in a lot of mediums and I don't like to be boxed.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So one of the things I wanted to, the reason why I wanted to bring the two of you together is for this reason. We have you, Dawn, with years of experience and some insight into things, and Honey Pierre, you are here and embarking and just, getting your foot into things. And I would love to hear really an exchange of ideas, maybe your thoughts on how maybe what the history of working with this medium means to you, and maybe pose that same question to you, Dawn. I know that before we got online, often any work that deals with textile or fabric or fiber is often relegated to the craft, the craft portion of the art world.
Denigrated is almost a better word.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I think it's important to for our audience to understand that it's kind of a misnomer. If you are an artist of any kind, if craft is a part of making art. So if you're just making art, you're just making art. You're not making craft. You're using craft to make art. That's an argument we can explore. But I just want to know just your thoughts about that, and how, if at all, that has informed how you go about making your art.
Well, people love to say some arts and crafts stuff to me, boy, I'll tell you, all the time. But with my medium, I've learned and it's a lot of older women that come up to me like hyped when they see my art. It's mainly older women. Like, it's never my generation. It's never even a generation before me. It's always the women who are like 65 plus. They are my biggest fans. They literally come up to me saying, I remember doing this in school. We used to do this day in and day out, with their single needles or like with a hook. That's how they used to do like a latch hook. And I was just like, word, that's like really hard. Like, y'all were doing this in school? And they were like, this isn't like a craft or anything. I was like, I know it's not. Yeah. But people are categorizing me as that sometimes. And I used to take it into offense, I get a little upset, with my feelings, trying to defend everything. But then I was just like, how is this a craft if it's in a museum?
Word.
You feel me?
How is this a craft?
If
it's in a museum. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think we also have to think about who is putting those labels, who's
facts.
assigning those labels. What about you, Dawn?
The thing that I always try to keep in mind is that you sort of want to, or people want to differentiate between craft and art and say that craft is something that you use and art is something that you look at. And first of all, that's just ridiculous, because you can use beautiful things and you can put something that it would ordinarily be used to drink tea out of on your shelf and admire it all day long. The other thing that I always try to think about is that before there was art, quote unquote, there were beautiful things that people made because they needed them.
That's right.
The bowl that you made because you needed to have something to drink out of or to eat your meal out of could have actually been beautiful and useful. The clothes that you made to keep yourself warm, the quilts that our foremothers made to keep our bodies warm, they didn't make them ugly. They made them beautiful because they took pride in what they did. So the concept of denigrating something because, one, it's useful, or don't get me started, because a woman made it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to play that with y'all.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's a reality. And I mean, so for me personally, just thinking about, like I said, I've always loved the art form. And just to speak to my own grandmother's quilts that I cherish, but I look at them as these beautiful, not just something that keeps me warm, not just something that tells our family history, but it really is a beautiful piece of something that I enjoy. And nowhere, I feel like for me, it wasn't until the explosion of the Geese Bin quilters did we even see conversations outside of maybe our communities about this art and the fact that it is art. And I don't know, I've always felt a way about that. I think William Arnett was the person who, yes, Bill Arnett, a big collector of a work that's made primarily by African Americans. But even that, it took this white man to say, hey, I have these things and I think they're valuable and I think that they're art and you should too, instead of, just its mere existence.
That's
Go
always been true of the art that African Americans make, though. It takes someone outside of the diaspora to say that it's real, which is why the generation before us, they had to go to Paris, they had to go to Germany, they had to go to wherever to be recognized for their talent. It's the whole story of Mr. Arnett and the sisters from Gee's Bend is kind of a sore point with me.
Yes.
However, the fact of the matter is that they, not he, can be credited with the art that they make being recognized as art versus as just something that they were making because they needed to keep warm. But it has always been, at least in whether you talk about African art, which was described as too raw to be considered art, yet Picasso and friends went to Africa, stole all the ideas, and came back and called it art. You talk about Kandinsky being the father of modern abstract art, when in fact he and friends went to Africa and took what they wanted, came back and wrote long things about it, and we became art. So it's just the same thing generation after generation.
It is, yes. I want to take it back to what you were saying, Honey, about your audience, and primarily it's older African American women who are just, geeking out over this work.
I'm here for it.
Which I love. Because I also feel like, that's a population who's often ignored when it comes to,
Talking about art, collecting art, loving the art.
Yes.
I feel like ageism is a real thing also in art, like with collecting, creating the artwork, showing, all that. And I embrace everybody and uplift them, the older audience, completely, especially when it comes to just conversations and talking about artwork. A lot of the people who DM me are older Black women who quilt and do punch needle, and we be kikiing it up, talking about what type of yarn we about to get. I'm like, do I use this type of yarn? Because I don't know. This is not going well. Can you put me on to something?
Yeah. So speaking a little bit more to that, because you're saying that younger generations are not with it right now.
Now.
Do you have any ideas, or does it bother you, or do you see any avenues for how this, they could, really come to understand what this art form is and why it's important, and maybe some history? I don't know. What the young folks say.
So my approach right now really is just education. That's the best way to go about it with my generation. It's just educating them the importance of keeping this tradition alive and why we should be doing that. And then the second is just putting them in the essence of my artwork, our lifestyles, our day-to-days, what we're wearing, like the upcoming exhibit I'm working on. It's literally a lot of people that I know that are my age, and I want them to see themselves within the artwork, so maybe they can connect a little bit more to it, and the storytelling behind that. And then lastly, it's just like, I feel like the internet kind of ruined it for my medium just like a tiny bit, because people like to call it rugs. I'm like, it's not a rug.
The punch needle?
Yes.
Okay,
oh my God, it drives me insane.
I know. And I love it. I love that. Listen, full disclosure.
Yeah.
I took a little punch needle workshop.
I love it.
Because of the internet.
Yeah.
But it is beautiful. And
Yes.
it is, it just lends such a beautiful quality to the subject matter. And the fact that you work at scale, too.
Yeah.
I love that. So while we're talking about scale and talking about art things, Dawn, talk to me about your process and just, what your work is like, and, do you prefer working at scale? And does working at scale give your work a certain meaning? What is that process like for you?
Again, it's a really practical solution. I'm very nearsighted, and I like things to be big. I like to be able to see my artwork from across the room. I particularly like it when
Trying to get the sun out of my eyes.
you have to get the sun out of your eyes. There you
Am
go.
I okay?
Is that better?
Can I scoot? How's that? Is that better?
The thing about it is the sun's going to keep moving.
I know. I mean, it's not bothering me, but I know we got to do things for the camera. So
I'm sorry. I like to have a bit of an element of surprise in my work, and I like someone to see my piece from across the room and say, "Oh, that's nice. It's a great painting," and they walk up on it, and it's not a painting; it's made of cloth. But it is both easier and harder for me to make things large. Easier because I can see them better, I can imagine them better, and harder because, of course, the bigger your piece is, the more time it takes. I think that one thing that Honey referred to a minute ago is that young people in particular they're becoming instant gratification generation, and they want something to happen immediately, and neither her work nor mine is going to happen today. It's going to take weeks, hours, months at a time to do one piece. And so that's what makes it hard. But then when you have gone through all of that, and you got this fantastic piece that you can stick on the wall, and you go, yeah, it was worth every dime, every minute of that. So I prefer to work really large. I'm learning as I age that I need to scale that back a little, because my, 30 years ago when I was doing this, or even 20 years ago when I was doing it, I was 20 years younger, and I had a lot more energy than I have now. And, I didn't have joints that make noise when I move, and so on and so forth. And I don't wake up with aches and pains the way I do now. But so I'm learning, particularly with the pieces that I'm working on right now, that they're simply too big. I mean, it doesn't need to be 9 feet wide. It works just as well at 5. But I like it because it makes a big impact. When you have a story to tell, sometimes you need a lot of space to tell that story. And there's a lot of little intricate moments in my work that give you more clarity, more definition about what the story is. And so I need all of that space, but I've got to find some way to pull it in some because I'm not getting any younger.
You young at heart, Dawn.
Yeah, tell my joints that.
What are your sentiments about this, your process and your work, and how does scale play into what you do?
Scale plays a huge part into my practice because with my figures, it's like I've tried to work smaller scales. I literally cannot tell the stories I want to tell at a 24 by 24. It doesn't make sense ever.
Yeah, I think what she just said about stories need room to be told, which is, I think, is so beautiful.
Yeah, and like everybody wants me to do it, but I'm like, y'all literally cannot do it at 24 by 24. I'm sorry, but we're gonna do 5 by 4, feet, and 9 feet. That's a goal. I'm not there yet, but like with my artwork, especially with how I frame it, like in the shadow box, it's like I want you to be inside the painting. I want you to live with it. I want you to not touch it, but have the same feel within it.
You know that's hard.
I know. You know how hard it is.
I saw your piece and I was just like, no, I'm not going to touch it. I want to touch it, but no.
Everybody tries to.
That's the worst part about being working in fiber is people want to actually touch your work, and you're like,
please don't.
Please don't touch it. Please.
But I think it's good to hear that and say that, because when you think about what art means to you, if any of you out here, when you go to a gallery or you go to a museum or you see a piece and it just resonates with you in such a way that you just want to experience it in all the ways you can. Sometimes I touch artwork. Sometimes I do.
I'm that person. I like to, when I go to a museum and they have the little rope in front, I'm automatically pissed off because I want to see
you
the
want to get up close,
strokes.
right?
I want to see the way the light. I want to see the layers of paint, especially if you have someone that does oil paints. I want to be able to see all that, but the guard is all like, lady, move back a little bit. But so I understand the concept, but with fiber, it's a different thing because so people will understand every molecule of oil, lotion, whatever that you have on your hands, sweat, that stays in that fabric. And if I touch it and you touch it and you touch it, then that presence stays with the artwork and it ruins it. And so the alternative is to put it behind glass, but then you can't get that person-to-person feeling. Like Honey said, I like to have people feel like they're a part of the story, but just do it from like this far. That's all I ask.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
So let's, Honey, let me ask you, future. Like, what are you thinking about how do you think about expanding this medium into other arenas?
So right now, and I'm grateful that there is like more people who are coming out with Punch Needle, because people have been looking at me like I'm insane for the last 2 years of me trying to put it in institutions. They're like, how's this gonna work? How's this gonna be in here? And now that there's
who's questioning that?
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised of even the galleries here in Atlanta, who have looked at me like I'm insane when I bring it to them, like my artwork.
So it's this is kind of bringing it back full circle to what we were talking about earlier, and what this medium is, who's making it, and
the stories.
Yes.
Yeah, so like now that there's more people who are like in Claire Oliver, who are showing, in museums outside the country, like in Canada and London. Now those doors are being opened. I could be like, see, if they can do it, I can do it. Because like even at the MoCA, when I had my solo, the residency there, they looked at me a little crazy when I brought in they know who I was. They know like I was working in this medium, but they've never seen somebody do it the way I do it. And I was just like, you guys just got to believe me. You got to see the vision. We're here. And then when opening day happened, even before like installation team and them talking and the curators, they're like, I actually really do appreciate this and I love this. And we want to see more people doing this. And I was like, thank God somebody else sees it. So in the future, like I said, the doors are opening and people are seeing it more as an art form and not as a craft. And since I'm presenting it the way I am with it being nicely made, it's framed, it's stories, it's lifestyles. I'm mixing other mediums. I'm incorporating quilting in my pieces now, and I'm doing the work. I see it in museums. I see it, more acquisitions happening. I see me going overseas with it now, you know, and all those doors are opening. I'm just being very patient.
That is wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
Because I want to see more of it, and hopefully people are out here learning about this and also wanting to go see more. Dawn, you have some time that you've been working and doing this. What are your thoughts on just kind of where the art world is now with digital AI? Is that something that you think about, considering that, you know, both of you work in these very, you know, tactical, with this very tactical material? Is that something you think about? Is it something that's of interest? I don't want to say concern, but interest.
I think concern would have been a better
Okay.
word, actually. It's concerning because what we do, I don't think can be duplicated electronically. And I think that it's going to be a really sad day when the art that we see was all generated by a computer. I think it's important for the people to realize that someone actually made this with their own hands and their own brain. And that when we get to the day where you can just, I appreciate all the modern technology when it's working, when it's plugged in, when it's, you know, there's enough electricity, but what's gonna happen, and this is gonna sound really weird and I'm sorry, but what's gonna happen when there is no electricity for you to do that with? And people are, I mean, I'm the kind of person that who teaches their grandchildren, my grandchildren, how to tie their shoes, even though most of their shoes have Velcro. I'm the kind of person that thinks it's necessary for you to learn how to cross the street, how to drive a stick, how to ride a bicycle, how to skate, how to make something with your hands, how to make bread. It's important because just the same way that all these things are available to us, and there are children who don't know how to tie their shoes, who don't know how to ride a bike, I think that there may come a time when we will regret not teaching art in school, not teaching home ec in school, not teaching mechanical engineering in school, because there's just some things that you just need to learn how to do. And so I will be an unhappy camper when all the art, and you know, you can put that in quotes, when all the art is made by a machine, when there's no room for a human to make something with their hands. I think this will be a really sad day.
I am on the fence about all of that. I agree that, yes, there are, just as humans, there are just things we just need to do, you know, with our hands. We do need to be able to sustain ourselves some kind of way. And yeah, technology is like, technology in art, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds because this is actually for the next segment. But I look at it as a way to, as a tool, you know, And if we can leverage the usefulness of a particular tool to help us achieve a certain goal, I'm okay with that. I do feel you on, you know, the day that we are in a world where it's completely AI generated art. That'll be
I'm not about to give up my sewing machine.
okay.
And
Yeah.
I have done the art by large pieces by hand. Takes a lot longer. But I think that your concept of keeping in mind that it is just a tool is the important thing to keep in mind. It's just a means to an end. It's not, see, it seems to me like it's become an end of itself, the experimentation about how to make digital art. Let's go ahead and do all the experimentation we want to with that, but come back to a human did it. So anyway, that's just an opinion.
And I know you have some thoughts.
I'm sorry, I love me some AI sometimes. I do, especially ChatGPT. That's my girl with artist statements. I use it as, like you said, a tool, because you have to create with it.
Yes.
You know, it's not like I'm stealing it and then we're gonna do it like this. Like especially in art field, like I feel like it's gonna be very hard for AI to do textile. It's kind of gonna be it's impossible, to be honest. So in art fields, it's just like, in a way, we're protected. Because it's like, what is AI going to do? Come in my studio and do this for me?
Right.
Like, no, they cannot. It can help me get it conceptually together, possibly within my sketches. But it hasn't even gotten that far yet with even artwork, in a sense. Because, like, yeah, we can sit here and create, like, some digital artwork with it, some of it, but to revise like sketches or conceptualism and all that, is still within yourself. You have to do it. Like I use AI. I just figured it out in this this class I took like 3 weeks ago at Cam Kirk Studios. This guy put me on to Color Mind, and basically it just helps you with color theory within your reference shots to see what colors are from that.
It's called Color Mind.
I love it.
You got that, Dawn?
Yeah, I got it. And I'm going to check it out. But
really cool.
I don't think that we have to worry about AI coming into our studios and replacing us.
Oh, no.
However, the what's the right word? Our audiences want of our work, which takes us months to do, when they can have something instantaneously, that's what concerns me.
That's just this generation and the generation.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I hope it's just this one, because like our stuff, it takes months, like you said. People be looking at me crazy when I say like this takes 5 months to do. They'd be like, really? I'll be like, really? It takes 5 months.
Well, that's a good point, because their concept of time is
Crazy.
Yeah, it's very much based on what's happening, you know, in the palm of their hand. So I get why they're like, what? This doesn't make any sense.
I know. I have to break it down all the time.
Why would you even want to spend 5 months doing something? You know.
You know?
I'm curious about just kind of housekeeping things. Like, what's a day in the life? Like, what is your process? How do you even how do you start things? How do you get things going?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I've been waiting for somebody to ask me that question for
process.
a really long time.
I
Thank
love
you.
process, because it's so important that people understand the work and the time. There's a lot of things that go on before you're actually doing stuff. And then when you get to doing stuff, that's a whole thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
And it's just as important as the final product.
Yeah.
The journey is just as important.
Yeah. So my day usually starts, depending upon the day of the week, I usually start with an aerobics class at the senior center to start my day off.
Here for it.
Then that usually is about an hour or hour and a half, and then I come back to my home. My studio's in my living room, and I usually work till about 11:30. Then I stop and have breakfast, and then I work until about 5, 6 o'clock, and either I'm making dinner or my husband is. If I'm making dinner, I stop and make dinner and then go right back to it. If he is, I work through, have dinner, wash the dishes, go to bed. My process changes quite a bit depending upon where I am in it. I'm working assembly line style right now, so I'm doing 9 pieces. And I do the same process to all 9 pieces and then switch to another process. So I'm either standing on a ladder or climbing up and down a ladder, or I'm bent over a table, or I'm about to be sitting at a sewing machine all day long. So it just depends, but I like to work. One of the best things about being retired is that I get to work all day if I want to. And I waited 30 years to get to this process, to this place, and I'm most happy, most contented when I'm working. Anything that interrupts my work, and my husband and children will tell you, it makes me an unhappy camper. So, but yeah, that's the way it goes.
So it's very much, the way you just described, it's just what you do. It's almost just, it's just
it's
what
like
you do.
going to a job. It is. It's just like, getting in your car and going to somebody's office space and sitting there working all day. That's what I do. Is what makes me happy.
Now, you said you're retired. So when you were early in your career, were you working job?
I had
as
a
well?
straight job. Yeah, I worked for United Airlines.
Okay.
Back in the day before you could go online and make your own flight reservations, you had to call me. And so I was, thank you for calling United. I'm Mrs. Boyd. How can I help you?
Okay.
And I was quite good at it. Did it for a very long time, but all the time I was doing it, I was thinking about, okay, when I get home, I have this thing to do, this piece that needs to be cut out, or this face has to be drawn, or damn, I have to do that hand when I get home. So I'm ecstatic to not have that problem anymore. So
All the goals, right?
All of them.
What about you, honey? What's your day to day? What's your process? What does that look like? What do you want folks to know about how hard this work is?
Work hard for the money. Okay. Wake up, show my gratitude to God, go to the gym with my trainer. As a
Y'all just some gym working out.
Got
folks.
to. It's the whole body we using.
yeah, it's a whole body thing. It's
Yeah.
not just your hands and brain.
It's everything. Like my mentor, we had a conversation in the beginning of the year because we do check-ins. And he was just like, have you started working out yet? Because he's like 58. And, he's over here out painting everybody who's younger than him still to this day. And he was like, I have to work out or else I'm not able to paint for 6 hours to 8 hours a day. I can't do that if I'm out of shape. And I'm not even like disciplined enough to stay in my studio. He also uses it as a routine of discipline. And he was just like, why haven't you started? I was like, you're right. And my friend, she's been trying to get me in the gym for like centuries. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna get a trainer. So I started going to my trainer. So boom, that's in the morning. Go work out for an hour. Come home, reset, check my emails, see what's going on. If I have a meeting, I have a meeting. If I don't, that's what's up. Yeah. Because some things can just, be one phone call or email away.
Right.
We don't have to sit on Zoom.
Right.
And then I go to my studio because we paying rent and we might as well use it. 8 hours out the day, it's like my job. This is my job full time. I'm a full-time artist, so I got to be in my studio. I got to be creating, researching, watching documentaries while I'm working. Like Miss Boyd, I got an assembly going on and working on at least 4 pieces at a time. I'm practicing quilting with my teacher if she's available at that time too while I'm in the studio, and then I take myself home or I'm outside with my homegirls.
Right.
and that's it.
Process.
And balance.
And it's a real thing. I'm so glad that you guys share that with us, because I feel it's important that people understand that artists don't sleep until noon and go to a coffee shop and, say, let me just put some paint on this canvas and, sit around and do whatever. It really is, like you said, it is a full body, a full being.
Real artists work all day long.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the artistes do, but artists work all day long. So, yeah, that's what that's about.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your Nadon? Did you study art in school, or did you find your way? How did you find your way?
Short answer is yes, I did study it. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri. I have, the time frame that I grew up, it was, I'll put it this way. My mother thought that a young woman needed certain social graces. And so, I was laughing. And so, I took French, I took poise and dance and all that, piano. I'm not any good at any of that stuff. But when I was a junior in high school, my biology teacher decided that we needed an art component in my school. And so she brought in those old styrofoam wig stands and a big bag of paper mache one day. And we made busts of our classmates. And mine was the only one that looked like the person that I was trying to bake. And so that was my eureka moment. I said, okay, I'm gonna be an artist. And so I have aimed my life I chose this college I went to and blah, blah, blah. From that point on, I chose the artist life I had found what I was good at. And it's not the only thing that I'm good at, but it's the thing that I'm best at. Right. And so, yes, I have a degree that says that I spent 4 years doing something that I showed up every day, I'll put it that way.
Okay, that's fair, that's fair. Honey Pierre, I know your journey has been interesting.
Yeah. Don't have a formally taught background. Looking into it though, because as of recently in the last 6 months, even talking to my mentor, a lot of my peers, people in the industry, I realized having a degree is essential.
You need this paper.
I need that paper. I need this piece of paper for some of these grants and residencies that I do want. That's on my goal list. Because I know some of these residencies that I've been applying to for the last 2 years, I know I'm being overlooked for a reason. And one of them is just not having my degree. It's good to be self-taught. It's not shaming nobody.
Right.
It's great that you can teach yourself and you're able to do that, but sometimes you do need that academia behind you to back you up and have a network and, somebody to teach you some new skills and have that piece of paper, for those reasons to get funding. Because, making art costs money sometimes.
Yes.
Oh,
it costs money all the time.
All the time.
It costs money all the time.
All the time. So funding
Art
is beautiful.
supplies are expensive.
Okay. Yeah. Inflation.
But you're right about having that paper. I have the BFA, but there are some things, I won't mention names, but there's some things that you need that MFA for. And until you get it, no matter how talented you might be, how hooked up you might be, you're not going to get that until you get that MFA, even though, you might not want to teach particularly, but I guess it's a rite of passage or something that the powers that be think that you need to have gone through in order to elevate you from where you are to the next level. Sometimes you need just a little bit more. And, I'm trying to not do that, but sometimes you feel forced into that, so.
I feel that right now. it's just so weird, like, at this point in my career, because I'm pivoting. Like, I'm an emerging artist, and I'm moving, and I'm grooving, I'm doing my thing. I found my style, my voice, everything. And now I feel like, yeah, I have to get my BFA. And thinking about where in this country or out this country would be suitable for me to learn at, and what am I going to do with this degree after I get it, and who is going to be my network, and how do I want to use my network? Because I have a great one right now that's working with me, but it's just like, how can I expand it? And I feel like getting that degree actually is going to help that. And then, like you said, MFA, because let's just be real, the real stuff got the MFA.
While you're getting your BFA, go ahead and get the MFA while you're at it, because there's no point in waiting.
No.
Just, plunk that 6 years of school down and get it done.
Ooh, 6 years.
Don't think about it that way.
I want to be 36.
I appreciate you being candid about your experience and the education component, because I think that's also important for people to understand that who might be wanting to pursue their art, but thinking that you have to have your steps ordered in a certain way before you can do anything. So I appreciate both of you sharing.
You don't have to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to.
But depending upon what you want to do with your work, it will benefit you. There are lots and lots of artists who do quite well, who don't have that paper. But in the society that we live in today, it just is like butter. I guess the old folks say it just greases the way a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that. I think we're in a spot where, are we ready to open up for questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? We have some wonderful faces here in person. It's good to see all of you. Do we have a microphone set up here too? Okay. So feel free if you just want to chime in. Thoughts, questions, ideas.
Don't you just love it when you say that and no one moves?
That's okay.
I know.
This conversation was so good already. It was so encompassing. Thank you all. Thank you, Kimberly, for moderating. So I chuckled when you said Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri. That's where my husband is from. He was born in Mexico, Missouri, but grew up in Fulton, and his mom grew up in Fulton. And so we're back at Stevens College more than I'd like to admit to, and I don't hear of people who went to Stevens, especially not for your BFA. So thank you for making it through and doing this wonderful work. And for Honey, I just wanted to comment on your transition from painting to the fabrics and the textiles, because it has been a beautiful transition to watch. So I first became introduced to your artistry through you applying to Articulate. And I remember when you first started doing the textiles, Georgia and I were so excited. And what you've continued to do with that has been absolutely amazing. And so I'm just happy to see that you kind of stayed with your intention and with where God and the universe was leading you, because the work that you're creating now, like, gives me all the feels. So just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll piggyback on that to say that what you were saying about others not really understanding or getting it, but you stuck to what you knew, first of all, is awesome. And you knew what you wanted to do. You knew how you wanted to convey your message. And I think there's a lot to be said for that too. So
It's just a whole lot of believing and sticking to it.
So why did you switch from painting to fabric, textiles?
Honestly, health reasons too, because we know how oil and acrylic can get sometimes with health, and I already have a weak respiratory system, you know what I mean? So like, I was like, why make it worse? With aerosol too, I was trying to get into that with doing public art. I was like, this is not for me, so I was like, textiles it feels good. And then I think God answered my prayer and showed me the way to using punch needle, and now I finally got the opportunity to learn quilting, because I'm a hands-on type of girl when it comes to learning. Doing the books and all that, that's what's up, but I need somebody there with me to teach me, or else it's not going to stick, you know? So now that I'm learning how to quilt, because it's only been a couple of months, I love it. I think it's cool. I don't even know why I didn't learn how to do it earlier.
And do you use the latch hook like I did in high school?
I did. It hurts.
It does. That's extremely painful.
It hurts. I don't understand how
Process.
y'all.
It's painful.
Yeah. But now we got the little punch needles.
Oh, there's a machine?
No.
No, it's I do know what this thing is.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like a little hand owl, like a
Yeah, like a little
needle thing.
Yeah.
We'll show
You're
you.
gonna
We'll
have to
show
hit
you.
me then.
Yeah, I got you.
So I think, did we have any questions from online, or we're good, or
Good.
yes, no? Step right up, sir.
A lot of what you have been talking about has to do with education, and there's one conflict that's built into what you were talking about, and I saw it expressed very beautifully by my niece, my grandniece, a few weeks back when we were having a family gathering. She's how old is Amaya? I think she's 5 now, 6. And she said, "How come you have all these scary things in your house?" And I asked her what she meant by scary things, and she pointed to some of the African sculptures. And that was my first time having this child tell me that she was afraid of African sculptures. And I thought it was really weird because this kid is learning, what's the Chinese language? She's learning Spanish. She's learning a Chinese
Mandarin?
language.
Mandarin?
Mandarin. So, her parents are professionals, and they are making sure that she gets a brilliant education. But this kid is afraid of African sculptures. Okay, so what that told me was, first, I really need to spend more time with that kid. But second, what it told me is that her parents value certain things over other things. So while this kid is getting a sterling education in some things, she's woefully ignorant about herself. And so for me, education, when you're all talking about education, and the last part of your conversation about whether or not one needs an MFA or not, that's a conversation that seriously needs to be had. I think by artists, again, what path is it that you're going to pursue? And if that path includes needing the earned pat on the head and the time spent, then that's one thing. But if it doesn't, then that's another thing completely. So I think that I'm kind of glad that you all were talking about that. It raises a lot of questions for me. Also, values. Is it about learning, or is it about making more money? Which? So for me, I'm glad that you did talk about that component, because there's a lot in flux there. There's a lot to be discussed there.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Thank you for the brilliant ideas, the panel, the artists. I really liked, there's a bunch that you all talked about today, but I really, my brain started turning when you were talking about the arts and craft and how people are projecting onto your art that it's just craft. And I'm curious about what you do, or what's the fight to separate it from that. You know, there are people that are doing it, and I think that if we, whatever we want to call it, that it lives in the craft realm, and then there are people that are doing it that it elevates it above that. And so what are some of the things that you both are doing to, I guess, separate it from people thinking that it's just craft and adjusting it as art?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I try to do that with a simple statement, and I get some flack from it sometimes. People often want to call or refer to my work as quilt art, and I try to explain that I don't like to use the word quilt because it has very specific connotations about something that you put on your bed to keep you warm.
Right.
And I don't consider myself a quilter. I'm an artist who makes artwork that you are meant to hang on your wall and look at it for. Now, when the apocalypse comes and the sun stops shining, or there's no electricity, here I go again, to keep us warm, please take that puppy off the wall.
And wrap yourself.
The work that I've been making for the last 10 years is not going to be as good, but the original artwork that I made from 2002 till like 2012, which was made like an old-fashioned quilt in that it has several layers, it will keep you warm.
Yeah, yeah.
So don't be shy
Right.
about taking it off the wall and wrapping yourself up in it. But I simply say I'm an artist and that my work, therefore, is art. I always apologize to quilters because I'm fascinated by quilters because their work is much harder than mine. It involves a lot of math. And it involves a lot of little tiny weird angles that I don't have to do because I'm not a quilter. But that's what I say. If you want to spend that kind of money for something to put on your bed, feel free. But you should go to Target first. If your only aim is to stay warm.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about, I think you were saying, like, you know, you can take a teacup and put it on a shelf and appreciate it, but it's just like doing, I'm an artist as well, but it's like doing research around some of the artifacts that were made in a lot of indigenous cultures. Like, I found out that there was no word for art when they were making those, but it's just like, and we're looking at them, and of course it's artistic and it's brilliant, but it was like, you're a narrative and about story and family, and it's like we've removed it out of that context and said, you know, put it in a museum, that's art now, but it's just missing the utility part of it. And so it's just like, you know, I would ask the people who are saying, well, it's just craft, well, what is that now? You know, because it was really not intended to be art. So I really like that. I like that you said that.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Thank you for that inquiry. We have run out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a beautiful conversation, and it's been, I'm a fan of both of your work, so this has been a special treat for me. I hope it's been a wonderful treat for all of you. I hope you've learned something new. Go out. Where can we find you? Really quick. Do you have some socials you want to just let people know where
you can find my work on my website, my name, DawnWilliamsBoyd.com.
You can also go on my website, honeypierre.com, and then Instagram at honeypierre_.
Okay, all the places. All right, if that's it, then thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Yes, November 19th. Please join in There will be a riveting conversation about more AI in art, so you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much.